Mic check, I'm good. So I'm Max Ceron, CWB Association Welding podcast. Today we have a really cool guest, welding podcast.
The show is about to begin.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the CWB Association podcast. Today we're going to have a special guest with us from Saskatoon, the thriving metropolis of Saskatoon, Derrick Lee. And again, as always, I'm with you, Max Ceron, coming to you from Regina. So Derrick, you're on the show here. How did you get on the show? What's going on? Who are you?
Well, I stalked you on LinkedIn. No, when I saw I was really impressed with all the previous podcasts, so I thought it was kind of sent you a connection on LinkedIn. And
yeah, that's awesome. You know, that's another thing about social media. Like in the last month, I'd say I've used LinkedIn more than I have in 10 years. I have like 1,000 connections on LinkedIn that I don't even know who they are. But, you know, I'm getting people reaching out to me like yourself, and I thought that was awesome. And, you know, I thought it was good to bring you on the show to show that is a way to get a hold of me, guys. If you're out there listening to the podcast and you're interested in being a part of the CWB Association podcast, you know, do what Derrick did and just reach out to me. And how are you connected, Derrick, to the steel industry?
Well, I'm a mechanical engineer by study, and I'm a CWB Weld engineer. So I've always kind of been tied with the welding industry in the province.
Yeah.
I've always worked at it. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. So you're, which one came first? You became an engineer first. Are you a mechanical engineer, you said?
Yes, mechanical engineer.
Okay, so you became a mechanical engineer first, or were you interested in becoming a weld engineer first?
Mainly, like most mechanical engineers, I guess I wanted to, design cars, and then once you get into engineering, your heart is broken when you realize that if you get the slim chance of becoming an engineer at a car company, you might be designing like a cup holder or something. So.
Yeah, I had a student of mine last year actually get a job down at for Ford in Houston. Oh. He got a job in the design team, but it was a long, perilous journey for him to get down there. Basically, you have to sign your life away to get a job working for automotive engineering, and who knows, he may be designing a cup holder for all we know.
Well, you might, and like there's a lot of good people that do that, but not for me too. Like once you get in there, and I love machine design. Like my dad's a mechanic, so I spent lots of time, and him and his buddies build like hot rods in the garage. So I spent a lot of time messing around with that, and it's just kind of the next logical step. And I spent summers working at an OSB mill, like an oriented strand board mill, as a laborer and helping out lots of the welding crews, their fire watch and their gopher. So it was good.
So where did you go to school to get your engineering?
U of S here.
So are you born and bred Saskatoonian?
No, I'm from a little bush town called Hudson Bay. It's kind of northeast of.
I've met people from Hudson Bay. It seems like a nice place.
That's great. I like it. It's not on the map. It doesn't look that far away, but when you're there, it feels like you're.
Feel pretty isolated out there.
Yeah.
All right. So you finished your college as mechanical engineer. Like you said, you had some dreams about designing things, and then you hit the market. So what's your first engineering job?
First engineering job. It's funny how everything's cyclical, and it was a bad time to get an engineering job around 2005.
Well, I know a lot of engineers out there, so.
And I'd go to interviews, and there'd be like 20 of my classmates in an interview, and they'd drill you with like aptitude tests and rapid fire questions, and I didn't get those jobs, but I was lucky enough to get a job down in Estevan, that's in the southern part of the province, and worked at an oil and gas manufacturing company. They made pump jacks and pressure skids, and it was great. I learned a lot there.
And you know, those are nice pieces of equipment to learn to design on, because there's lots of types of pump jacks and skids out there, and so you have lots of visual examples to go off of, and they're not overly complex. Like they have a very utilitarian purpose, right? So
yeah, for sure. And yeah, exactly, you can look at examples, and actually did spend a lot of time my own time. You drive out to go look at a pump jack operating on a lease somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
And then my thing was always, I still believe this, is if we're gonna, be inspired by a certain part of a working pump jack or piece of equipment, let's not take the bad parts. Like you don't want to have the same design flaw that someone else uses. So
Yeah, they never made a second Edsel, right? So
exactly.
so you're a car guy. I gotta ask, like, do you got a nice car? Do you drive something cool? You got something you're working on?
I'm kind of delinquent in that sense, where I was big in high school, but it's kind of set since university. I've got a '56 Chevy sedan delivery that's pretty rough, and actually, my dad has just been sitting in his yard. He just fired it up and kind of moved it around the other day. But since university is so crazy, I didn't really work on it a bunch, and then work and everything. So
56. If you can go out and fire up a 56 to move around, it's still probably in better shape than a lot of other 56s out there that are dead in the lot.
for sure, yeah. So my dream is to get enough time to kind of bring it up to Saskatoon and kind of get it at least into like a rat rod condition.
Is that what you're going for, the rat rod?
Yeah, just because they're kind of drivable. I don't want to have to like. Kudos to the guys that have the mirror paint job and stuff, but I'll just scratch it.
I'm hoping not to do that anymore. I'm hoping I'm done with crashing cars for a while anyways. So all right, so you got your job, you're out in Estevan, you're living the oil dream down in southern Saskatchewan, lots of work. It really picked up for a while there until the bottom fell out in 2008. Were you able to get through that all right, or did you have to bounce out and find something else?
It was pretty good. It was I was kind of laughed like just my weld related experience there. You come out of school and everybody's very engineers are bad. You come out of school and you kind of think you can do a lot of stuff, and you get taken down a notch pretty quick, which is I deservedly did. I remember the welding supervisor just throwing prints on my desk and being like, "What is this? Like, we cannot build this. This is garbage." And then you look at it, you're like, "Oh, this is garbage."
Yeah, and then you start looking at your senior engineers being like, "Did you guys do this?"
So I ended up being buddies with most of the welders and machinists at the shop, and it worked out pretty good. So I enjoyed my stay there, learned a lot, and then yeah, and then I just kind of just felt like it was time to move. Yeah, it was a bit of a slump, and I moved back to Saskatoon to a different kind of manufacturing role.
Yeah, where'd you go to then?
It was a company. It's an agriculture manufacturing place. So they did a lot of grain handling. So the company's name's Ag Growth. So we did like Wheat Heart, Twister grain bins. I have a brain fart here. They own lots of companies. Now they're a huge multinational, headquartered in Winnipeg.
Yeah, and that's a tough industry to get into, is the agricultural industry. For people that don't know much about Saskatchewan, we kind of get forgotten on the list of trade places geographically because we do have a fairly strong manufacturing sector. Since we are not a compulsory trade for welding in Saskatchewan, basically anyone can go get into a shop and become a welder without having to go through apprenticeship. That opens up a lot of doors for manufacturing companies to keep prices down. You can hire people without any training for lower wages, which there's pluses and minuses to that scenario. But we do have a strong manufacturing, especially in the agriculture world. We got all sorts. We got Degelmans and Brandts and Agro and Dutch is out there, and geez, there's probably a dozen, and they're all highly competitive. I see them overseas.
Well, absolutely, yeah. Everybody, and they've really stepped up their game. It feels like in the past 20 years, or at least as long as I've been kind of a part of it, they're really ramping up. Like it's pretty high tech. A lot of this.
Yeah, the robots, lots of robotic work now because, in order to keep the costs down and much better engineering, much better engineering. Before it was using heavy materials and weld it solid and make it last 100 years. And that's not very cost effective. So it was, using more engineered equipment, more engineered materials and trying to reduce welding and build times, right? So.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a bit of a culture shock coming from the oil field where it was more so like we want it tomorrow, and it can be a little, we always used to joke, it's not an airplane, we can build it big, but we just need it tomorrow. And then in agriculture, it was so competitive, very innovative, but competitive, and you'd have to really try to thin things down and a lot more detail. Like everything's got their own detailed design, but it's just more focused on making it more cheaper and easy to make and mass production.
Yeah, I worked for agro, well, not agro, but an agricultural company for 5 years, the head fabricator for a division. So I was working with engineers on developing the jigs and all the building components for the floor. And if one thing I really learned to appreciate from the manufacturing sector as a whole is the commitment to continuously learning and changing designs. They're never married to a single design. If the design needs a fix, it gets changed. It just has to happen. And I came from mining industry where, like oil, there's just money and things have to be happen tomorrow. They could have the same ugly part reproduced 100 times, and they know it's going to break, but they don't care because they just want to get it done. And it is a big change.
Oh, for sure, yeah, and yeah, that's the one thing I did enjoy more the manufacturing world. Like you were in jig making, and I did deal a lot with the jig makers and tool makers there, and some of the system setups. Learned a lot off those guys, and still buddies with a couple of them.
Yeah, it's a fun gig. I know that if you can get to the point where you're the jig maker for a big shop, you know a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's good. I remember mine was Al Deshane. I hope he's still alive. Last time I saw him, he was about 78. He mentored me into the world of jig making, and he was this old rough and tumble guy, 6'7", 6'6", 70-some-year-old guy who still played ice hockey every winter. Like, it was just an amazing guy. But he had been building jigs for so long that he could eyeball counterweights on spinning jigs. Like, and I'm talking about like things that are like in the tons of weight, and he'd build them and just be like, oh yeah, I'll put this on there, put that on there, and then you could just spin it. Like a 80-pound person could spin this thing on these jigs, and it's like, Al, how do you have the eye for that? Like, I mean, an engineering program designing it probably wouldn't even hit it that close, you know?
Well, absolutely. Yes, that's some of those guys. That's fantastic. Even just to know what'll stand up to the abuse too, because you can think like, oh, it should never see this, and then the tool maker, I don't know.
All right, so then you did a little bit of time in the agricultural field, and was that for a while or short-lived, and where did you go to next?
About 3 years. It was good. I learned, like I said, learned a lot there about like the lean process and the whole. I know that's a trendy thing now, but there's a lot of value in it. And so then I followed my now wife out to BC. So I lived in Vancouver Island for a couple of years there and worked at a big pulp mill.
Did you meet your wife in Saskatoon, or was she out in Vancouver?
I met her here in Saskatoon when she was just finishing up a veterinarian school, and then it's very competitive. So she went home to live with her parents to find a job, and she did. And then I was lucky enough to find a job out there. It was pretty competitive at the time.
Yeah, and right now, I think Vancouver or the West Coast has quite a bit of work actually happening. So hopefully, the key is always follow your dream. If you're a hard-working person, you'll make it anywhere. So, so what did you do in the West Coast there? What did you do out there?
So I was a maintenance engineer. So maintenance and reliability. So most of it was maintenance, but often when they got pulp mills have the big giant boilers. So when those go down, calling people trying to fix stuff, and it was an old mill, and paper prices aren't that well, so you had to get really creative with stuff. And it was good. It was actually reminding me a lot of the agricultural design thing, whereas the best solution to fix it, but we need to do a temporary selection to fix it to limp along until we can do the next shutdown because they're so expensive. So
yeah, it's like, what's the best option to fix this? Okay, it's option A, and then your boss looks at you and goes, okay, well, how's about you give me option F? Let's skip B, C, D, and E because we know that's probably also too much money or time. You got something in the middle of the pack that'll work,
Oh, absolutely, and it's all like pressure vessels and like lifting devices and stuff. So it was always like and chemical tanks. So it was always kind of high pressure where it wasn't like it had to still be a solid fix. So there's lots of times of me, standing there with like the lead millwright, the electrician, and a welder, and just kind of like, what are we gonna do?
Those are good places to be. I did a stint at a steel shop or a steel factory here in town, as a maintenance worker. At that time, I was just a welder, and I recommend to young people coming up in the industry that sometimes they don't understand the term maintenance. They think of it as cleaning or something like that. Like they think of the maintenance man at the apartment building, which is, theoretically it's not that much different. But if you get a job or an ability to get in on a maintenance crew for a large company or a factory, there's almost no job that will have you thinking on your feet as well as those gigs, because literally every day is a different disaster to be averted, you know?
Absolutely, this place had a great, besides having no money, but we had great people and a great reliability plan. So you look at your weekly vibe text charts and see, pretty much you're just looking for differences in there. You're like, oh, this pump is it was running ragged for the past 3 years, and now it's smooth. That's bad, or
Yeah, something's about to happen.
Yeah. So it's like, let's plan for, because it always happens on a Friday at 2 a.m.
That's because everyone's already hungover from the Thursday beers.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, well, wow, that was 15 minutes already, man. That was crazy. Well, we're here at the halfway mark with Derrick Lee from Saskatoon, and we're gonna take a break here for our sponsors on the CWB Association podcast, and we'll be right back.
The CWB Group is Canada's national welding certification organization. We're pleased to offer welder testing at our state-of-the-art facility in Nisku. We provide welders the opportunity to practice for and take a CSA W47.1 welder qualification test. Book your welder qualification test with Canada's welding experts. Give us a call today at 1-800-844-6790 or visit us online at cwbgroup.org to book your training or testing slot. The CWB Group. We are welding.
The CWB Association membership is new, improved, and focused on you. The CWB Association is offering a free membership with a full suite of benefits to anyone interested in joining an association that is passionate about welding. Build your career, stay informed, and support the Canadian welding industry. Become a member today. Register at cwbassociation.org.
And we're back here on the CWB Association podcast. I'm Max Ceron with you guys, as always, here talking to Derrick Lee about his adventures and life as an engineer. You know, we've had almost like too many engineers on the show. What do you think, Derrick? Is there such a thing as too many engineers?
Absolutely.
I was just thinking, Robert was an engineer, Sebastian was an engineer, you're an engineer. Oh. And I think I got a couple welders lined up coming up, so it'll even out. I think maybe we're gonna have to have a pit fight between all of you guys someday.
Oh.
Bring everybody online at the same time, and
Piece of strength.
it'll be one of those airing of grievances like in Seinfeld. All right, yeah, exactly. So you're out in the West Coast now. You're working for a pulp mill. How long did that last for?
It was about 2 years, and then it's funny how when I was out there, they were going through financial hardships, and you know, you kind of reach that point in your life where you know, I was with my girlfriend, and we're looking at settling down, kind of a thing. I want to buy a house and do all those things, and it's like, now we're, you know, stock price. I think we're in receivership at the time, or not receivership. No, we were in. Anyways,
it was tight.
It was tight. So it was tight. So I was like, I don't know. So the guys were great, but I just decided to got a good opportunity to come back.
And was the wife able to find a veterinary job here in Regina, or in Saskatoon?
Yeah, she was. Yeah, she's still at that place now, so that's going good. And yeah, she picked up a spot right away, so it's great.
All right. So when you came back, where did you end up working?
So then I worked at a really neat place, a Fortis Mining and Manufacturing in town. So they offered me a position there, and they were great. They get in all kinds of stuff, so I really like that. Really like that kind of a fab shop. And they did a lot of lifting and plans and a lot of fall arrest stuff and custom equipment, and
that sounds fun.
Some real creative guys in the shop there that were really good. So yeah, it was a lot of interesting stuff. And
then you were there for a year or two?
Yeah, I was there for 2 years. 2 years, I think, yeah.
And then where'd you bounce off to?
Then I went to a large manufacturing place that's in, I think your company, or your old company owns it now, but Mitsubishi Hitachi.
Oh yeah, Hitachi. I had quite a few friends come out of Hitachi. It had the largest sub-arc in Saskatchewan or Western Canada for a while there. Yeah, it was a crazy big shop. So for me to come from the small shops to the kind of the big giant one, it was were they doing the turbines there when you were there?
They were doing some of the turbine casing. I was really doing all the piping for the turbine.
Okay.
Pressure piping. manufacturing.
Because I know a shop that size, big shops bring big work, right? It's kind of the build it and they will come, Field of Dreams idea. And I know that they had gotten some of the uh, turbine work, and I think they, I believe, had a couple crystallizers go through there too. But I think J&E's, is that also in Saskatoon? Yeah, J&E,
Yes.
I believe they got their crystallizers now. So yeah, and now Brandt bought Hitachi, I believe.
Yeah, there's a bunch of ex Mitsubishi Hitachi people there, so that's good.
Hmm.
Yeah, they did a bunch of big vessels when I was there. It was interesting, big finished machine parts. Yeah, it's different when things are at that bit large of a scale, like when you're doing spools and you're doing
Yeah.
500 spools of piping. It's a
And see, that's my gig. I love big stuff. That's always been my favorite stuff to work on is large, heavy, complex. That's I could do that. I miss it now that I'm on this other career path. I do miss being on the floor working on those big projects like that.
yeah, it's so cool to kind of drive by and see this massive thing that you worked on.
Yeah, and they're worth millions and millions of dollars. Just
Oh,
the perspective is different, right? So you're at you're working for Hitachi, and then where'd you go from there?
So then I went to a small consulting firm that was just kind of well, not starting up. They've been out for a while, but they were kind of expanding. Um, called Howard Consulting, and I worked with them for a bit, and it's kind of their lead mechanical engineer,
Hmm.
stamped up lots of stuff, and worked for them for about 3 years, and got to see a lot of interesting projects, and be
And then
part of a big,
and that sounds like that would have been the lead into where you are now.
yes, yeah.
Yeah, because once you go into consulting, it's hard to get back into private. So you're in consulting, and now who are you with?
Corvus Engineering, so that's my own consulting
So
company.
do you own it?
Yeah,
And how many people do you have with you at Corvus?
just just me, but I do for larger stuff. I do sub out to some really good contractors. So
So as a independent business owner now, as an entrepreneur running your engineering firm, did you find the transition difficult from working for someone who's giving you the work to having to go out there and commandeer the work yourself?
actually, not not really, because we always almost everywhere I've worked, I've always had to be involved in the kind of the business development part
Hmm.
of it, and the finding and quoting things. And like my first job, I was quoting steel, quoting costs and stuff. But second job, yeah, so it wasn't too big of a difference, to be honest with you. It's good.
Yeah, and and you have a fairly extensive career. Like you're quite the journey person. Like you got out and you worked a few different provinces and quite a few different sectors, and hopefully you didn't burn any bridges because as you move into entrepreneurship, the networking and the connections that you create over your career get quite valuable to you, right?
Absolutely, and I like to think that hopefully, knock on wood, I haven't burnt any bridges. I still talk to people from every job I've worked at, so hopefully they still like me. You never know. Just watching the scowling that comes up.
Yeah, well, we'll see what the kind of remarks we get on YouTube here. We'll see, or on the podcast, someone might pipe up now.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's been good because like so much of it, like part of the reason kind of I bounced around was just to like always trying to learn and gather more info. Like I feel like even like the barrier from fabrication to consulting is actually I found it to be a very hard barrier to jump between, because there are kind of different worlds. Like some people spend their whole career in consulting, and some people spend their whole career in fabrication, which is fine. But I feel I like to be rounded a bit in there, so I can kind of see both sides of it.
I totally get that. I've made that same jump without the engineering background. I come from a purely fabrication background, and I started my first company when I was 25, and I've kind of had variations of it over the years. Even as I work normal jobs, I kind of always have my consulting and building on the back end. And there's definitely times that I've made mistakes, and underquoted or overquoted jobs, and paid the price. Either I'm losing money or I'm losing a customer because I was way too expensive, or I shot past a number that I didn't expect. And a lot of times you just that's how you learn. Like there's not going to be someone that's going to sit you down and tell you, because there really isn't a right answer. It's it's a fine line between being competitive and putting food on the table, right?
Absolutely, that's always the hard thing. I've come to terms with it, but that stressing over what to bid for something, and I almost like it better now when it's just my company, because before I was just stressed like I'm a people pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say because of me, if we lost the project, I'd feel guilty that I let my boss down and stuff like that. Now I just let myself down.
Yeah,
Which,
just the
I'm okay with
dogs.
that.
Yeah, the dogs and the cats will judge you, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you're right, Jeff. But yeah, so that was a big change.
Yeah, and since you're on your own and you're working yourself, how did you feel the coronavirus? In March when it really opened up, how did that affect your business? I mean, most of your work is obviously computer based, or in the land of theory. So, did it affect you much? Did you do better, worse?
A little bit. Like most of my work was done from home anyway, so it didn't really change that. More so, I guess like shop inspections and stuff like that kind of changed, just extra precautions. But all my customers have been super, super great about that.
Yeah. Did you see much reduction in work on from your clients' side? Did they have? Did they suffer? Did your clients seem to do all right?
I feel like people were steady for a bit. I did see a bit of a dip kind of midsummer, which I was okay with, because then it's kind of height of the chaos and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
more family time and stuff. But things are busy now again, so I think there's that uncertainty. What I imagine happening is a lot of people just kind of holding on to stuff until they know what's going on.
And people forget that there is natural waves to industry. Even though the coronavirus is obviously another deciding factor right now, steel shops have slow times. Like, I mean, just the way manufacturing is, or the price of steel, the price of oil, the price of power. I mean, things fluctuate. There's with or without a pandemic, there is still layoffs that happen in the world, and there's still times when you're ripping busy and times when you're dead. So, you just layer in this new factor, right?
Yeah, and like midsummer is usually midsummer and usually around that Christmas time is usually slow anyways.
Yeah, it's usually slow for everybody. That's just the way it is.
So
So now going forward, do you have your sights on any major dreams? Do you look to expand your business into taking on more, or are you happy being Han Solo out there?
absolutely. Yes. No. I don't know. I guess it's a good question. I don't really have a good answer. I do enjoy just like I do enjoy just doing my own thing. I mean, I don't have to worry about the stress of employees
Mm-hmm.
and paying their wages and their life struggles and stuff like that. But who knows? Sorry, it's a non-answer.
Yeah, no, that's okay. I'm just gauging to see, like, is he actually hiding that he's gonna hire 3 guys tomorrow? No.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you, when you go out, how much have you invested like into your branding? Like, I noticed that you have like a Corvus. Is kind of where'd that name come from?
It's I guess like my wife loves ravens. I guess a lot of people do. They're big in lots of different cultures, and I like them too, because they're they're survivors.
And they're incredibly smart, which is creepy.
Yeah, exactly. So and then I thought raven was a little bit maybe too obvious, so I kind of went with Corvus because it's the genus for like the corvid birds. So that's where I kind of came from. And just wanted a simple design that remember a coworker of mine told me, like, a good design you can print off in black and white and it still looks good. So that's why I stuck with black and white.
And does your wife help you at all with any of your business stuff, or do you take care of all the paperwork, everything?
I handle all the paperwork. I mean, I bounce big decisions off of her, and we talk about all those things, and I don't even know, like future plans and stuff like that, or marketing things. But it's just generally she's busy enough with her own stuff. So,
do you see yourself in Saskatoon for forever?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm sure my wife would like to retire somewhere hot and sunny.
Well, that's not Canada at all.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Like I really like Saskatoon. It's great. It's a great city.
Yeah, my wife's from there too, so I pulled her away from Saskatoon to come to Regina to be with me, and she nary lets a day go by without reminding me about how much more beautiful Saskatoon is than Regina, which I don't know. I think they're very equal.
Exactly. Yeah, they're very similar. You guys have a big park there. That's nice, and you're closer to a lot more communities and stuff. But I don't know. They're both good.
You guys are closer to the north though, which we love going up there, get up there camping and stuff. And then you're from a small town, so you probably do like the outdoors quite a bit.
Yeah, I like that's the one thing I kind of miss about even being in the cities. Like in Hudson Bay, you're just like there's so many lakes and
Hmm.
trails, things to go do, and it's
So tell me about one, say, really interesting project that you're working on right now. You don't have to diverge customer information or anything like that, but what's something that you have on your table? You're like, man, this is pretty cool.
oh crap, I should have.
I told you I was going to ask you questions to put you on the spot. So,
I don't know, like right now, it's tough for me to think. Like I like all my projects, but
hmm
I think of one that maybe I did previously that was maybe interesting. As Corvus, I worked on a couple neat ones. Like there's a modifications to a titanium tank I did, and that was pretty that was eye opening.
well, titanium is a very difficult material to work with, even just in terms of forming and shaping. Even if to get pieces made and cut and formed, it's a whole nother world.
Absolutely, I had to reach out to my network of skilled welders and stuff to talk about like how do you deal with like some of the there's a couple to and even a couple people I met at online welding forums that reached out to get things down like it all has to be TIG welded
Hmm
and titanium with it's reactive, I guess you call it, it's reactive temperature. It's quite low, so you really had to have like a trailing block for your purge gas.
Yeah,
Another important thing. And
to work as a heat sink. Yep.
just to make sure you were covering with shielding gas until it cooled off quite a bit, and your internal purging, and even like cutting it can be challenging.
Yeah, like I know, I one time I had to do a transition of the titanium, and I had to just form it in the press. First time I'd ever worked with titanium sheeting, and it doesn't like bending. It's not happy in the press. It has an incredible spring back rate.
Oh yeah, it's not and it's not real great for heat transfer. I don't think it's not good. It's
No,
funny. Some people, everybody thought let's make it out of titanium. It's like it's not always the best.
no, and that sometimes you have to cheat. I know that I've had quite a few friends of mine that snowmobile, and lots of snowmobiles use titanium exhausts. And it's just a short little piece of exhaust, but they'll get wrecked, and they'll bring them to me to fix. And the first couple I did them like with titanium rod, the purging, the gas, the whole spiel, and it worked out fine. But it was such a hassle. So since then, I just cheat and use 309 stainless, and you know what? That works just fine. Good enough for an exhaust.
Absolutely, yeah. Nice and gummy. It'll be good. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, some of that stuff. Yes, it's my dad always jokes. It's not just good; it's good enough. uh, yeah, it's a couple like and that's the one thing I like about kind of with my own company is I can kind of take on challenging projects, and if I have to keep my hat or something, then again that's the onus is on me. Versus it's harder to take some
Is there
risks
is
as a
there
wrong
like
one.
a scope that you won't take? Like being by yourself, does that limit your ability to take on a really large project?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I've turned down large work before just because when I know I can't meet what they need or the requirements, but I also branch out. There's a couple other little one man show, or one person show
Hmm
engineering firms that I reach out to, and we can
Team up.
you know team up and attack it. And but yeah, usually I always try to be honest with people about like what I can do and what size I can do because you do one bad project and that's you're kind of marked. So
It that is very true. You really got to be careful with the work you put out when you become an entrepreneur. When you work in a shop, mistakes can happen. They kind of get swallowed by the entity that is the corporation. But once you attach your personal life to that corporation, uh, you have to. I'm not saying be mistake free because mistakes will happen. They do happen, but you have to be very upfront and honest about where you are on a project. And if something does get done improperly, you just have to fess up and deal with it and correct it and just figure it out, right?
oh, for sure, and that's the one thing. Like my reputation as an engineer, I try to take pretty seriously. I mean, like I've never had someone say I was a bad engineer.
Not to your face.
Not to my face. Heard lots of other stuff to my face, but not that. So
That's good.
now I'll get a bunch of emails. But I don't know. Yeah, it's just and Western Canada is such a small, like it's big, but it's such a small community. Like people know everybody in Alberta, and
It is a tight community, yeah.
so if you don't make do on a promise, people know about it. And so I'm always upfront and honest. Sometimes it's a hard conversation to have, but
hmm
no, I can't do this for you.
Well, Derek, that's a half an hour. Boom. That flew by. That was super entertaining. Did you have fun?
Yeah, it's great.
So, parting words on your end. Is there anything you'd like to say to any young engineers at the U of S or in Saskatchewan coming up that are looking to, coming out of school with as a mechanical engineer or structural engineer or whatever, and they have big eyes moving in the industry? What could you tell them?
I guess, I don't know. The one thing that I always kind of try to preach to junior engineers when I've had people that I've mentored and stuff is like, you always work with the people that build the stuff and know how it gets built, and treat them with respect, because there's engineers sometimes is kind of a dirty word in welding shops. But and just to work together, right? Because like one place I worked at, I loved it. We'd always review the drawings with the crew, because if something can't be built, tell us now before we're into it, and that's the way you learn. So and for welders, maybe be patient with engineers.
It is a two-way street, honestly. All the best companies I've worked for had a very open dialogue between the people on the floor and the engineering team. They were comfortable going down and talking to the people on the floor, and the welders themselves didn't feel like they weren't allowed to go up to the engineer's office and ask a question, and I think that's fantastic.
Yeah, I think you absolutely need that. I mean, I've had that at Hitachi, with Fortis, at Waterfall, all the places. I always try to go out and talk to the guys, or maybe I screw up or something, and you got to go talk to it and see how you can solve it, or who knows whatever reason it is. You just think you get a better product when you realize you're on the same team and you're just trying to make a good safe product.
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot, Derrick, and I might have to check up on you in a while here. Make sure you're doing okay. Let me see if you get that 56 up and running.
Yeah, there we go. Oh, that's going to put a time frame on that.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
All right, and for all the people tuning in to our podcast, make sure that you share and like our content, both on Spotify, check it out on YouTube. Make sure you check out the CWB Association website and the CWBgroup.org website. All our information is going to be up online, so you guys can check in on me and on Derrick and his company. And if you guys have any questions, or if any of you guys are interested in being on the show, you guys can do as Derrick did and just reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm everywhere. I am an all-encompassing blanket on social media. So, stay tuned and be a part of the show. Thanks, Derrick.
We hope you enjoyed the show.
You've been listening to the CWB Association Welding Podcast with Max Ceron. If you enjoyed what you heard today, rate our podcast and visit us at CWBAssociation.org to learn more. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions or suggestions on what you'd like to learn about in the future. Produced by the CWB Group and presented by Max Ceron. This podcast serves to educate and connect the welding community. Please subscribe, and thank you for listening.